Emma Wilson had always dreamed of a peaceful life filled with small joys. She found exactly that when she met Daniel Brooks at a cozy bookstore cafe 3 years ago. Daniel was a quiet man with a warm smile and gentle eyes. He spoke softly, listened carefully, and never seemed to rush through anything. Emma, who taught literature at the local high school, felt drawn to his calm nature. Right away, their first meeting happened. On a rainy afternoon, Emma was browsing the mystery section when she reached for the same book as the tall man beside her. "Sorry," he said with a light laugh. "You take it, I can wait." That simple kindness started their conversation. They talked about favorite stories, rainy days, and the comfort of a good cup of coffee. By the end of the hour, Daniel had asked for her number, and Emma had happily given it. Their dates were simple and sweet. They walked in the park, shared picnics under tall trees, and visited small art galleries. On weekends, Daniel worked from home as a software consultant. He helped companies fix computer problems, but he never brought work stress into their time together. Instead, he asked Emma about her students, her lesson plans, and the books she loved to read aloud in class. After a year of dating, Daniel proposed in the most thoughtful way. He took her back to the same bookstore cafe. On a quiet evening, the owner had helped him set up a small table with flowers and 2 cups of their favorite coffee. When Emma opened the book he handed her, a beautiful ring fell into her lap. "Emma, you make every day brighter," he said softly. "Will you marry me?" Tears filled her eyes as she said yes. Their wedding was small and full of love. Only close friends and family came. Emma wore a simple white dress and Daniel looked handsome in a dark suit. They danced slowly under soft lights while their golden retriever Max watched from the side with a happy tail wag. Everyone said what a perfect couple they made. "You two seemed so peaceful together," one friend told Emma. Now 3 years into marriage, their life in the quiet suburban neighborhood felt like a warm blanket. Their house had a pretty garden in front where colorful flowers bloomed each spring. Inside, books lined the shelves in every room. Emma loved coming home from school to the smell of dinner cooking or the sound of Daniel typing away at his desk. Every morning started the same gentle way. Emma would wake up to the aroma of fresh coffee. Daniel always prepared breakfast: scrambled eggs, toast with jam, and sliced fruit. They sat at the kitchen table and talked about their plans for the day. Emma shared funny stories about her students, like the boy who wrote an entire essay about dragons in history class. Daniel would chuckle softly and offer thoughtful advice. In the evenings, they walked Max through the neighborhood park. The dog bounded ahead, chasing falling leaves or greeting other dogs with friendly barks. Daniel held Emma's hand as they strolled along the path. The setting sun painted the sky in soft orange and pink colors. "This is my favorite part of the day," Emma often said, leaning her head on his shoulder. Daniel had a few quiet habits that Emma found endearing. He read old books late into the night, turning pages slowly as if savoring every word. Sometimes he fixed things around the house without being asked: a loose door handle or a squeaky floorboard. He was patient with Max, teaching the dog new tricks with treats and kind words. Neighbors often waved when they saw the couple. "You two are goals," Mrs. Parker from next door would say with a smile. So calm and happy, Emma felt lucky in a world that sometimes felt too loud and Busy Daniel brought peace. He never raised his voice, even when things went wrong. Once when a big storm knocked out the power for 2 days, Daniel simply lit candles and turned the evening into a storytelling night. They sat together, wrapped in blankets while he read from an old adventure book. Yet, every now and then, Emma noticed tiny things that made her wonder. Daniel had very few photos from his childhood. When she asked about his family, he would smile and say they lived far away and preferred to keep in touch by phone. He had no old friends who visited or called often. I like keeping life simple, he explained one evening. Emma accepted it because she loved the peace he gave her. Their weekends were filled with small adventures that felt special because they were shared. They drove to nearby farms to pick fresh apples in autumn. In winter, they built snowmen in the backyard and drank hot chocolate by the fireplace. In spring, they planted new flowers together, their hands covered in soil as they laughed at Max digging holes nearby. One crisp autumn evening, they sat on the front porch, watching golden leaves drift to the ground. Max lay at their feet, chewing on his favorite toy. Emma leaned her head on Daniel's shoulder and breathed in the cool air. "I'm so glad I married you," she whispered. "You make everything feel safe and good." Daniel squeezed her hand gently. His smile was soft, but for a brief moment, his eyes seemed to look far away, as if remembering something from long ago. "I feel the same way about you, Emma," he replied in his quiet voice. "You brought light into my days." As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Emma felt completely content. Their life was not filled with wild excitement or big surprises, and that was perfectly fine with her. She had a kind husband, a loving home, and a future that looked steady and bright. Little did she know that beneath Daniel's calm surface lay secrets from a past he had carefully hidden. The quiet human she had married carried more than just gentle words and soft smiles. But on that peaceful autumn evening, everything still felt right in their small, happy world. Emma Wilson woke up to the sound of steady rain tapping against the bedroom window. It was a Tuesday morning, and the gray sky matched the cozy feeling inside their warm house. She stretched and smiled when she smelled fresh coffee drifting from the kitchen. Daniel Brooks was already up, moving quietly as he always did. Life felt safe and predictable, just the way she liked it. After breakfast, Emma kissed Daniel goodbye and headed to school. Her students were excited about the new book they were reading together. She spent the day guiding lively discussions and helping with writing assignments. By the time the final bell rang, she felt tired but happy. She looked forward to getting home, changing into comfortable clothes, and spending the evening with her husband and their dog, Max. When Emma turned onto their street, something felt different. Their front door stood slightly open, swinging gently in the breeze. Her heart beat a little faster. She parked the car quickly and walked toward the house, calling out softly, "Daniel, are you home early?" There was no answer. She stepped inside and froze. The living room looked like a storm had passed through it. Drawers were pulled out and emptied onto the floor. Couch cushions lay slashed open with their stuffing spilling out. Books from the shelves were scattered everywhere, some with pages torn. Max huddled in the corner, whining softly but unharmed. Nothing valuable seemed to be missing. No television, no jewelry, no laptops. The Damage felt strange and personal. Emma's hands shook as she dialed Daniel's number. "Come home right away," she said. When he answered, something bad happened. Her voice cracked and Daniel promised to be there in minutes. He arrived quickly, his usual calm face showing real worry for the first time. He stepped through the door and scanned the mess with sharp eyes. "Stay by the door, Emma," he said in a steady but firm voice. "Let me check the rooms." He moved through the house carefully, looking in every corner, behind doors and inside closets. When he returned, he pulled her into a gentle hug. "It's clear now no one is here." Two officers walked through the house, taking notes and asking questions. They looked at the broken door lock and the scattered items. "It looks like a random break-in," one officer said. "Sometimes people get scared off before they take anything. We'll file a report and increase patrols." In the area, they dusted for fingerprints but found none that helped. Before leaving, they advised Emma and Daniel to be careful and calm if anything else happened. That night, the house felt different. Emma and Daniel cleaned up together. They swept broken glass, straightened shelves, and threw away ruined cushions. Daniel worked quietly, but Emma noticed how this movement seemed more alert. He kept glancing toward the windows and doors. Max stayed close to their feet the whole time, as if sensing the change. After they finished, they sat on the couch with cups of warm tea. Emma leaned against Daniel's shoulder. "Why would someone do this and not steal anything?" she asked. "It doesn't make sense." Daniel stared at his tea for a long moment. "I don't know," he replied softly, "but we should be more careful from now on." He suggested they get stronger locks and maybe a security system. Emma agreed, though the idea of needing such things in their quiet neighborhood made her uneasy. Sleep did not come easily that night. Emma lay in bed listening to the rain, her mind replaying the mess in the living room. Beside her, Daniel did not sleep either. She could feel him lying awake, breathing steadily but not relaxing. Every so often he would get up quietly, walk through the house, and check the windows and doors. His footsteps were soft, but Emma heard everyone. The next morning, sunlight tried to push through the clouds. Emma made breakfast while Daniel went out to the garage. She noticed he had been spending more time there lately. Curious, she followed him after a while. The garage smelled of wood and oil. Daniel stood near the back wall, staring at an old wooden box on the workbench. It was simple, with metal corners and a sturdy lock. Emma had never seen it before. "What is that?" she asked. Stepping closer, Daniel closed the box quickly and turned with a small smile. "Just some old tools for my father," he said. "Nothing important." His voice stayed calm, but Emma saw his hands tremble just a little as he moved the box to a higher shelf. She wanted to ask more, but something in his eyes made her hold back. Instead, she nodded and suggested they have lunch together. Over the next few days, the uneasy feeling grew. Emma found herself looking over her shoulder when she walked to her car after school. One afternoon, she thought she saw the same dark car parked across the street from the school. It drove away when she noticed it, but the memory stayed with her. Daniel became more watchful too. He installed new deadbolts on all the doors and added motion lights outside. When Emma asked why he seemed so prepared, he simply said, "I don't want anything to happen to you or Max. Better to be safe." He still spoke gently, but there was a new firmness in his tone. One evening while Daniel was in the shower, Emma sat at his desk to look for a pen. A small notebook lay open. She did not mean to read it, but her eyes caught a few lines. Written in neat handwriting, the words looked like notes about old stories or maps, but some phrases seemed strange. Before she could read more, Daniel walked in. He closed the notebook calmly and changed the subject to dinner plans. That night, as they lay in bed, Emma turned to him. "Daniel, is there something you're not telling me?" she asked quietly. "About the break-in or anything else?" He looked at her with those kind eyes she loved. "I don't want you to worry, Emma. Some things from my past are better left there. We have a good life now. Let's keep it that way." He kissed her forehead and held her close until she fell asleep, but Emma could not shake the growing questions. Who had broken into their home? Why did the intruder ignore valuable items and focus on destroying personal things? And why did Daniel seem to know exactly what to do when trouble came? The following weekend, they tried to return to normal. They took Max for a long walk in the park. The leaves had turned bright red and gold, and the air felt fresh. Daniel held her hand as they walked, pointing out birds and telling her funny stories about his work calls. For a while, the shadow of the break-in faded, yet when they returned home, Emma noticed Daniel checking the new locks twice. Later that evening, while she graded papers at the kitchen table, he sat nearby reading one of his old books. Every few minutes his eyes would lift and scan the windows. Emma watched him and felt a mix of love and worry. The quiet man she married still brought her comfort, but now a small crack had appeared in their peaceful world. Something was hiding just beneath the surface of his calm smiles and gentle ways. As the days passed, the first shadow grew a little longer. Emma began to wonder if the man she loved had secrets that could change everything. She did not know it yet, but the break-in was only the beginning. Darker clouds were gathering, and soon the quiet life they shared would be tested in ways she could never imagine. The weeks after the break-in passed slowly, like heavy clouds that would not leave the sky. Emma Wilson tried hard to return to her normal days at school. She smiled at her students, read exciting stories with them, and helped them write their own tales about brave heroes in faraway lands. Yet every time she drove home, a small worry sat in her chest. She checked the rearview mirror more often and made sure all the doors were locked. When she stepped inside the house, Daniel Brooks stayed close and kind as always. He cooked warm meals, took Max for extra walks, and held Emma's hand little tighter during their evening porch sits. But Emma could feel the change in him. His eyes moved quicker. Watching the street from the windows, he checked the new locks twice each night. Before bed, when she asked gentle questions, he would smile softly and say, "I just want to keep our home safe, Emma, that's all." One quiet afternoon, Emma sat alone at the kitchen table while Daniel worked in his small office. Upstairs, Max rested his head on her lap and she stroked his soft fur. Her mind kept turning back to the wooden box in the garage. "Just old tools," Daniel had said, but the way he closed it so quickly made her wonder. She trusted her husband deeply, yet the unanswered questions felt like tiny stones in her shoe, uncomfortable and hard to ignore. That evening after dinner, Emma decided to look for answers in her own way. While Daniel took Max for a short walk, she opened her laptop and typed his full name into a search bar. Daniel Brooks, Pages of results appeared, mostly about software work and a few old school records. Nothing strange showed up at first. She added words like family and past, but still found only simple information. Then she tried something different. She searched for news articles from about 15 years ago. One link caught her eye. It was an old newspaper story about a young man who had suddenly disappeared. The headline read, "Local family seeks answers in mysterious disappearance." The photo beside the article showed a young man with the same kind eyes and gentle smile as her husband. The name listed was Alexander Brooks, but the face looked exactly like Daniel. Emma's heart beat faster. She read the short article carefully. The young man had left home one night without a word and never returned. His family had searched for months but found no trace. The story ended with a plea for any information. Emma stared at the screen for a long time. Could this be the same person? Daniel had told her his family lived far away and preferred phone calls over visits. He had never shown her old photos or taken her to meet them. When Daniel returned with Max, Emma quickly closed the laptop. She greeted him with a warm hug, but inside her mind raced with new questions. That night as they lay in bed, she turned to him in the soft darkness. "Daniel, tell me more about when you were younger," she said gently. "Did anything big ever happen in your life before we met?" He was quiet for a moment, then he pulled her closer and spoke in his calm voice. "Life was simple back then, Emma. I studied hard, worked different jobs, and decided I wanted a peaceful future. Meeting you was the best choice I ever made." His words felt honest, yet they did not answer everything. Emma fell asleep with her head on his chest, listening to his steady heartbeat, but her dreams were filled with shadows and unanswered whispers. The strange events did not stop. A few days later, Emma received an anonymous phone call. She answered while grading papers at home. No one spoke on the other end, only soft breathing and then silence. She hung up quickly. Same thing happened twice more that week, always when Daniel was away on a short errand. She told him about the calls and his face grew serious. "If it happens again, let me know right away," he said. One rainy afternoon on her way home from school, Emma noticed a black car following her at a distance. It stayed 2 or 3 cars behind through several turns. When she slowed down to test it, the car turned onto another street and disappeared. She arrived home with shaking hands and told Daniel what she had seen. He listened carefully, then suggested they add a security camera to the front porch. "We will figure this out together," he promised. That same night, Emma could not sleep. She slipped downstairs for a glass of water. As she passed the study, she heard Daniel's low voice on the phone. The door was slightly open, and she paused in the hallway, not meaning to listen but unable to walk away. His words were soft but urgent. "They found me after all this time. No, I will not let them come near her. It has been many years, but the old dangers are waking up again." Emma's breath caught in her throat. She stepped back quietly and returned to the kitchen, her heart pounding. When Daniel finished the call and came out, she pretended to be pouring water. He smiled at her as if nothing had happened. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked kindly. She nodded and let him lead her back to bed. But the fragments of his conversation echoed in her mind all night. The next morning, Emma waited until Daniel was busy with his work calls. She opened her laptop again and searched. Deeper, this time she looked for any mention of Alexander Brooks or similar names connected to unusual events. She found another old article from a small town paper. It spoke of a local legend about an ancient family line that protected something valuable, old stories of guardians and hidden treasures passed down through generations. One name mentioned was linked to the Brooks family many years ago. Emma closed the laptop and sat quietly. Pieces were starting to fit together in a strange puzzle. The break-in, the phone calls, the black car, and now these whispers from Daniel's hidden past. She loved the gentle man she had married, the one who read books with her and played with Max in the yard, yet she could not ignore the feeling that he carried a much bigger story inside him. Over the following days, Daniel grew even more watchful. He taught Emma simple safety steps like varying her route home from school and keeping her phone charged at all times. They spent more evenings together talking about happy memories, their first date at the bookstore, their small wedding, the day they brought Max home as a puppy. These moments helped Emma feel close to him again, but the question still lingered. One weekend, they drove to a nearby lake for a peaceful picnic. The water sparkled under the sun and birds sang in the trees. Daniel packed their favorite sandwiches and a blanket. They sat on the grass while Max chased butterflies. For a few hours, everything felt normal and bright. Daniel told her funny stories about his early days fixing computer problems for grumpy clients. Emma laughed and leaned against him, feeling the warmth of his arm around her shoulders. As the sun began to set, they packed up and headed home. On the drive back, Emma watched the passing trees and thought about how much she cherished their quiet life, yet she also knew that shadows from the past were reaching into their present. She decided she would wait for the right moment to ask Daniel directly about the phone call and the old newspaper articles. She wanted to hear the truth from the man she loved, not from silent searches on a screen. That evening, as they sat on the porch once more, watching the stars appear, Emma felt a mix of love and growing curiosity. Whispers from Daniel's past were becoming louder. She did not know what secrets he held or why danger seemed to be circling their home, but she believed in the kindness in his eyes and the gentle way he held her hand. Little did Emma realize that the quiet human she had married was guarding something far greater than their simple suburban life. The first shadow had grown into many, and soon the truth would step fully into the light. Their peaceful world was about to shift in ways that would test their love and change everything they thought they knew. The stormy Friday night arrived with heavy rain and strong winds that shook the trees outside. Emma Wilson and Daniel Brooks had just finished a simple dinner of roasted chicken and vegetables. They sat at the kitchen table talking about Emma's students and a funny poem one boy had written about a talking dog. Max lay happily under the table chewing on his toy. For a short while the house felt warm and safe despite the wild weather. Suddenly, a loud crash came from the back door. Wood splintered as three masked men burst into the kitchen. Rain and wind rushed in behind them. Emma gasped and jumped up from her chair. One of the men moved fast and grabbed her arm, pressing a cold knife against her throat. "Don't move," he growled. Daniel rose slowly from his seat. His face, usually soft and calm, changed in an Instant, his eyes grew sharpened. Focused, the gentle man Emma knew seemed to disappear, replaced by someone strong and ready. "Where is it?" the man holding Emma demanded the blade. "Give it to us now, or she dies right here." Other two men stepped forward, blocking the way to the living room. They carried heavy tools that looked like they could cause real harm. Rain dripped from their dark clothes onto the kitchen floor. Max barked loudly from under the table, but one intruder kicked at him, making the dog retreat with a whimper. Daniel's voice stayed low and steady. "Let her go. This has nothing to do with her." The leader laughed coldly. "It does now. We know who you really are, Guardian. Hand over the sword and maybe we'll leave." Quietly, Emma's heart pounded hard in her chest. She could feel the sharp edge of the knife against her skin. Fear made her legs feel weak, but she kept her eyes on Daniel, silently pleading for help. In one swift motion, Daniel moved. He grabbed a heavy wooden chair and swung it at the nearest man, knocking him off balance. The chair broke against the wall with a loud crack. The second intruder lunged at Daniel with a metal bar, but Daniel dodged smoothly as if he had practiced such moves many times before. He struck the man's arm with precision, causing the bar to fall to the floor. The leader tightened his grip on Emma. "Stop or I cut her." Daniel paused for only a second. His eyes met Emma's, filled with both love and fierce determination. Then he sprang toward the kitchen counter with incredible speed. He reached behind the tall cabinet and pulled out the old wooden box from the garage. He had moved it inside days earlier without telling her. The third man charged at Daniel, swinging his fist. Daniel's city stepped and pushed him hard into the refrigerator. The man stumbled and crashed against the shelves, knocking over jars and bottles. Daniel opened a wooden box with quick hands. Inside lay a long bundle wrapped carefully in dark cloth. He unwrapped it to reveal a gleaming sword. The blade was long and perfectly balanced, shining with an otherworldly light. Even in the dim kitchen, ancient markings ran along its edge, catching the flashes of lightning from the storm outside. Sword looked beautiful and powerful at the same time. It was not like any weapon Emma had seen in movies or books. It seemed almost alive in Daniel's grip. The leader shouted in anger and pushed Emma aside roughly. She stumbled against the table but stayed on her feet. The man rushed at Daniel with his knife raised high. Daniel moved like flowing water. He raised the sword and met the attack with a clean, controlled stroke. The blade rang out as it struck the knife, sending it flying across the room. With another quick motion, he disarmed the second man who had recovered and tried to attack from the side. The sword flashed again, cutting through the air with precision, but never striking to kill, only to defend and push the intruders back. The third man, still dazed from hitting the refrigerator, tried one last desperate charge. Daniel turned and used the flat side of the blade to knock him to the ground. The man slid across the wet floor and crashed into the broken door. The three masked men lay groaning on the floor or scrambling to their feet in panic. Fear filled their eyes as they looked at the sword in Daniel's hands. "This isn't over," the leader hissed as he backed toward the door. "We will come back with more." They fled into the stormy night, leaving behind broken wood, scattered furniture, and drops of rain mixed with a few spots of blood on the floor. The back door hung crooked on its hinges, swinging in the wind. The kitchen fell silent except for the sound of rain and thunder. Emma stood, frozen, staring at her husband. Daniel lowered the sword slowly, his breathing steady and calm despite the chaos. A shallow cut on his forearm bled little, but he paid it no attention. He wiped the blade carefully with a clean cloth from the counter and wrapped it again with gentle hands. Daniel, Emma whispered, her voice shaking. Who are you? He turned to her, his eyes full of regret and quiet strength. Max came out from under the table and pressed against Emma's leg, trembling. Daniel knelt down first to calm the dog with soft words and strokes. Then he stood and faced Emma. I never wanted this to touch you, he said softly. I thought I could leave it all behind. He placed the wrapped sword on the table. Between them, the kitchen light made the cloth glow faintly. Outside, the storm continued to rage, but inside the house, a new kind of storm had begun. Emma looked at the man she had loved for 3 peaceful years, the quiet husband who made coffee every morning, read books with her at night, and walked Max in the park. Now he stood before her, holding something ancient and powerful. His hands, which had always been gentle, had moved with the skill of a warrior. She felt fear, confusion, and a deep love all at once. Tears filled her eyes. But she did not run. Instead, she stepped closer and touched his arm lightly, right above the small cut. Tell me the truth, she said, her voice stronger now. All of it. Daniel nodded. Slowly, he took her hand and led her to the living room, away from the broken glass and rain blowing through the open door. They sat on the couch together, while Max curled up at their feet. The sword rested nearby, a silent reminder that their simple life had ended. Tonight, everything had changed. In the flash of steel and the roar of the storm, the quiet human Emma had married was gone, and in his place stood someone far greater and far more dangerous than she had ever imagined. Yet as Daniel began to speak, his voice remained kind and full of love for her. Emma listened with wide eyes, her heart open, even as the world she knew shattered around her. The night was far from over, and many more truths still waited to be revealed. But for now, in the middle of the storm, husband and wife sat together, connected by love stronger than fear, as the sword that had awakened changed their lives forever. The storm outside slowly calmed as the rain turned to a soft drizzle. Inside the damaged kitchen, Emma Wilson sat on the living room couch beside Daniel Brooks, her hand still holding his. The wrapped sword rested on the coffee table between them, like a quiet bridge between their old life and the new one that had just begun. Max lay at their feet, his head resting on Emma's shoe, as if seeking comfort from the only world he knew. Daniel looked at her with eyes full of love and deep regret. The shallow cut on his forearm had stopped bleeding, but a small red line remained as a reminder of the fight. He spoke in the same gentle voice she had always known, yet now it carried the weight of long-hidden truths. My real name is Alexander Kane, he said softly. I was born into an ancient bloodline of guardians. For generations, my family has protected a special relic, the sword you saw tonight. It was forged long ago to seal doorways between our world and places that should remain closed. It keeps dangerous forces from crossing over and harming innocent people. Emma listened without interrupting. Her mind felt like a whirlwind, but she focused on his calm face and the warmth of his hand in hers. She remembered all the Quiet evenings, the shared meals, and the peaceful walks, how could the same man who read bedtime stories to their dog now speak of ancient relics and hidden doorways? Daniel continued, his words measured and kind. 15 years ago I chose to walk away from that life. I was tired of the constant danger and the loneliness it brought. I changed my name, moved to a new town, and built a simple existence. I wanted to be an ordinary man who could fall in love, have a home, and live without looking over his shoulder every day. Then I met you at the bookstore cafe, and everything felt right for the first time. He smiled faintly at the memory. You brought light and joy into my days, Emma. Your laughter when you read students' funny essays, the way you planted flowers in the garden, how you always made sure Max had fresh water. I fell in love with your kindness and the peaceful world you lived in. I promised myself I would never let the old shadows touch you. Emma's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them away. The break-in, the phone calls, the black car, they were all because of this sword. Daniel nodded. A rival group has searched for the blade for many years. They believe it holds power they can use for their own purposes. They finally tracked me down. The break-in was their first attempt to find it. When they couldn't, they watched us, waiting for the right moment. Tonight they came with force, because they thought I was still the quiet man who would not fight back. He reached out and gently touched her cheek. I never wanted you involved. I thought if I stayed hidden and lived simply, the past would stay buried. But love made me stay, and now that same love means I must protect you with everything I have. Emma looked at the wrapped sword in the soft lamplight. It seemed almost ordinary again, yet she remembered how it had gleamed with a special shine when Daniel held it. Does the sword really open doorways? She asked in a quiet voice. It helps seal them, Daniel explained. There are thin places in our world where other realms can touch ours. The sword strengthens the barriers and pushes back any creatures that try to slip through. My family guarded it for centuries, passing the duty from parent to child. I was meant to continue that line, but I chose a different path. Now the rivals want to break those barriers for power and control. He stood up slowly and walked to the broken back door. Wind still whispered through the cracks, carrying the fresh smell of rain. Daniel examined the damage with careful eyes. We cannot stay here tonight. It is not safe. I have a friend from my old life who can help us find a secure place while we decide what comes next. Emma rose and joined him. She touched the splintered wood where the door had been forced open. Our home, the garden, the porch, where we sit every evening. Will we ever feel safe here again? Daniel turned and pulled her into a warm embrace. I will make it safe, he promised. We can rebuild, but first we must understand the full danger. The rivals will not stop easily. They know about you now, and they will try to use that against me. They spent the next hour carefully gathering a few important things: clothes, Max's food and bed, some favorite books, and the wooden box that now held the sword once more. Daniel moved with quiet efficiency, securing the house as best he could with boards and extra locks. Emma packed with steady hands, though her thoughts raced between fear and wonder. As they drove away in the middle of the night, Max curled up on the back seat. The town lights faded behind them. Daniel took a longer route, watching the mirrors to make sure no one Followed, Emma sat beside him, the sword's box resting safely between her feet. The rain had stopped completely, and stars began to peek through the clearing clouds. They arrived at a small cabin deep in the woods, owned by Daniel's old friend, an older man named Robert, who greeted them with a nod and kind words. Robert asked no difficult questions. He simply showed them to a cozy room with a fireplace and warm blankets. "You are safe here for now," he said, before leaving them alone in the quiet cabin with the fire crackling softly. Emma and Daniel sat together on the edge of the bed. Max explored the new space with careful sniffs before settling down. "Happily, I am still the same man you married," Daniel said, taking both her hands. His, the one who loves making coffee for you in the morning and listening to your stories about school. But I am also Alexander Kane, the guardian who can protect what matters most. I will teach you what I can about this world, Emma. Not to frighten you, but so you understand and can stay safe beside me. Emma looked into his eyes and saw the same gentle love that had won her heart. "Years ago, I married a quiet human," she whispered, "but tonight I saw a warrior who fought for me without hesitation. I am scared, Daniel or Alexander, but I am not running away. Our life together was beautiful because it was simple and full of love. If that simplicity is gone, then we will build something new, stronger and honest." Daniel's shoulders relaxed and he rested his forehead gently against hers. "You are braver than I ever imagined. We will face this together. The sword will stay hidden, but ready. I will show you the old teachings, the signs to watch for, and the ways to stay one step ahead. In time, we may even return to our home and make it a place of peace again." Over the next few days at the cabin, they began to rebuild their trust in small, meaningful ways. Daniel taught Emma basic steps to recognize danger and simple ways to stay aware of her surroundings. They took walks in the quiet woods with Max, talking about their favorite memories and dreaming about the future they still wanted. Emma shared how much she loved teaching and hoped one day to return to her classroom. Daniel listened and promised he would support her dreams, even as he guarded the ancient duty he could no longer fully escape. One clear evening, they sat on the cabin porch under a sky full of stars. The sword remained safely inside, but its presence no longer felt like a frightening secret. It had become a symbol of the strength Daniel carried and the love that made him choose Emma above everything else. Emma leaned her head on his shoulder, just as she had done on their own porch many times before. "Everything has changed," she said softly. "Our home, our daily life, even the way I see you. But one thing has not changed at all. I still love the man beside me, the quiet human who became my husband, and the guardian who drew his sword to keep me safe." Daniel smiled and kissed the top of her head. "And I love you more than any ancient duty or hidden power. We will write the next chapter of our story together, Emma, not in fear but in courage, and in the simple joys we can still create every day." As the stars shone brightly above the peaceful woods, husband and wife sat side by side. The quiet life they once knew had ended on that stormy night, but a deeper bond had taken its place. The sword had awakened, danger had come close, and everything had changed. Yet in the heart of that change, their love remained steady and true. Together they would face whatever came next, protecting each other rebuilding their dreams and discovering that sometimes the greatest adventures begin when a quiet human draws his sword, and everything changes. Is